G'day and thanks for joining us for another Australia Talks. I'm DK and I'm joined as always by my lovely co-host Ardeet. Today is Wednesday, the 12th of August 2026, and our topics this week are beer tax, a national outrage that needs to end, and bird flu. It has arrived, and unfortunately there is actually a real risk of extinction for certain bird species, and it's not limited to birds. So a bit of a grim one, this one. Of course, we've got our Two Ticks Sound Talk, and then we'll jump into This Week in Australian History and finish off, as always, with a 4X bottle top trivia. But before we get into all of that, we need a favour from you all. If you enjoy the show, the best thing you can do to help us out is to share it with a friend. We're just grateful for a review as well. This helps us grow the podcast and keeps us making the show that you love. Now, let's catch up in the last week. Ardeet, hello. How has your week gone? Or should I say, where in the world is Ardeet? Or should I say, can he unmute his mic?
Oh, can he unmute his mic? Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? I'll leave that mistake in, but I'll cut out some of that pause for you listeners there. So, yes, as I was saying to myself, I'm down here in Bruny Island in Tasmania. Myself and Mrs. Ardeet came down for 8 days or so, just as a bit of a holiday. Wanted a bit of a remote part of the world, so very peaceful. But the room I'm recording in the Airbnb, I was saying to DK beforehand, it's sort of like a conservatory type thing. So I've basically got 4 glass walls and a high ceiling. So you'll hear a bit of echo, particularly if I do a bit of a raucous laugh, which does happen sometime. You may also hear the Tassie native hens, and in fact, I was surprised to hear a fact about them, and I'm just quickly scrolling down to my 4X bottle top quiz. Nope, I can say this safely. I thought it might have been a question I had for DK. Aside from the emu and the cassowary, they're the only other flightless bird in Australia.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But they make a sort of, like if you hear a sort of a funny sort of sound like that, that's the native hens. And they apparently get referred to as turbo chooks down here because they can bolt along. So yeah, they're funny little creatures. But yeah, it's been nice and relaxing here. Got a few more days. One thing that, been a nice scenery and that, but one of the things that surprised me, I visited the Bruny Island House of Whiskey, and I knew they did distilling down here and did whiskey down here. I was blown away by the number of single malts available in Tassie. There's apparently somewhere around 30 to 50 single malt distilleries in Tasmania, and they had a wall of Tassie single malts. Like it would have been about, what would my guess be? Probably about 3 metres by 2 metres of shelves, like close packed shelves, all with different bottles of single malts. And wow. Some of them one behind. Yeah. So I just did it's what they call a flight, a selection, a tasting selection of 4 of the single malts down here. Ended up buying a bottle, not one of them, because for one of one of them, but not of the other ones, because the other ones were sort of not available or hard to get. So yeah, they'll give you a taste of some good stuff there. Yeah, they've got different ranges, different prices that you pay, but that was really nice. And the young woman behind the counter, she knew her stuff. So that was a big bonus. She was able to guide me through, get the taste right. And one thing that I was really impressed by, because I was saying to look, I don't like it with that. Some of them got a little bit of an iodine taste. I said, I don't mind a bit of peat, but not too much. And I said, the single malt that I like the most, I've got at home, that I constantly buy is one from Scotland, Balvenie Doublewood. She said, describe it to me and look something up. And she said, I'll see if I can match it. I said to her, if I had a blindfold on it, I'm not the biggest professional at this. I'm still got my L plates on, but I said if I had a blindfold on, wouldn't have been able to taste the difference between the one that you picked to match it and my memory of it at home. So I was pretty impressed on how she nailed that. Yeah. So it's been a nice, easy, relaxing walk. Lots of done a bit more reading than I have for a long time. Just science fiction, which I like to read, and a couple of other things. But it's just being able to think. Okay, well today the object is walk, have a bit to eat, and relax. So yeah, very much enjoy. And I'm in shorts at the moment. The weather is similar to Melbourne. It obviously gets ridiculously cold down here, but the temperature at the moment, similar to Melbourne, I think it just feels like 7 degrees. It was when I checked a little bit ago, which I know is
7 degrees.
Yeah, which is insane for you, but
that is not shorts weather. Oh my goodness.
Well, short, but I've got like a vest on and an under singlet, and inside it's pretty good. So yeah, when I go out, I do put a jacket on. But yeah, I came down here in jeans and had jeans on for a couple of days, and I thought, I'm getting back into shorts.
I'd need thermals, I think.
Yeah, you would. You'd need thermals and what do they call those ones to revive people? I should know. An AED, a defibrillator. How about you? How's your week gone?
It's been good. Nothing is quite as exciting as yours. I should say as well, when I did go to Tasmania, I did get to try some of the whiskies, and we went to the Lark Distillery, which I believe is the first major distillery down there. And some of their whiskies were absolutely incredible. So it's not surprising that they're still going strong. Though I think it's incredible how much that sort of industry has exploded. Because I'm trying to think, when I was there, it would have been probably 2010, so a while ago, a good 15 plus years ago. So for them to have really exploded that industry in that time is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing how much. I mean, I remember getting. Oh, God, how long ago was that? I think it might have been maybe very, very early 2000s, if my memory serves me correctly, getting some whiskey. I think it was from Lark, and it was I thought it was one of their first releases. And I thought, Tassie whiskey, that's interesting. I thought, oh, gosh, I really like that. And then I think I got some the next year, and then the third year, you just couldn't get it. It just went for sale and was gone. It was snapped up. The price shot up. Good luck to them. But yeah, I remember sort of thinking, gosh, that's taking off. And now here we are.
Unfortunately, that happened to me with one of my favorite ports, and it got discovered, and they still sell it. You can still get it. But now the bottle is half the size and it's twice the price. So sometimes it's, you're glad to see them succeed, but at the same time, it can be a bitter pill to swallow. So
yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I'm certainly happy to see them succeed, and I'm happy to see this as an industry for Australia. And there's people come out compete with it. The bottle I got. It probably wasn't cheap, but it was cheaper than what I would pay for the Larks or that. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it was a special. Like I wouldn't be forking out for that every single time I wanted to drop.
Yes, I was. While you were talking, I was looking at the Lark Distillery page to be like, oh, maybe I'll get a bottle. And then I remembered how much it is and went, maybe not. maybe next time I go to Tasmania, I might get one as a special occasion. But
a memento.
Yeah. My whiskey budget isn't that high right now. All right, let's move on.
Speaking of drinking.
Tell me about it. Get me all fired up. The problem with Australia's beer tax is well known. The question is it time to end it? The cost of alcohol is grinding Australia's old pub culture and live music venues into dust. Should we keep forging ahead with 6 monthly excise increases? We're seeing the public start asking this question as we brace to pay more for spirits and packaged beer as the Australian federal government imposes its 79th alcohol tax hike in 40 years. The Australian, yeah. They don't miss you. The Australian brewers and distillers now pay the third highest tax in the world, only surpassed by several countries in Scandinavia, with the government preparing to cash in $9.1 billion in total alcohol taxes this year. That, for a standard 700ml bottle of spirits, is approximately $30 of the retail price, is just alcohol excise before GST is applied. That's why you can imagine when you go to the bottle-o and you see your favorite bottle of rum or whiskey or whatever it is that you used to buy for $40 or $50 is now $60 or $70. The twice-yearly automatic indexation was introduced by the Hawke government, bloody Hawkey, back in 1983, led by Treasurer at the time, Paul Keating. It's got to the point where the cost of alcohol is grinding our pubs and our live venues basically into the ground because it's just too expensive for people to go out and drink on a regular basis. But maybe we should try a thought experiment. Let's abolish the excise on beer for 5 years and see what happens to Australia's pub culture and its nighttime economy. Would they thrive? Probably. Would the cultural and economic benefits of such an experiment outweigh the cost of government's lost excise revenue? Maybe not. I'm not sure. But it may sound trivial, but the biannual ratcheting up of our beer tax would be contributing to the general sense that we're all being crushed by relentless price increases. We're currently enduring a period of stubbornly high inflation, record low productivity growth, real wage declines, and deteriorating economic growth per person. Workers who rely on wage or salary income and those who rent are also trying to survive a period of record low rental affordability. So, at a time when people would love some relief from life's stresses and burdens, to see the price of alcohol being mechanically and regularly pushed higher by long-standing bipartisan policy is one more thing that just keeps chipping away at everyone's collective souls. And we've spoken about this before. I do wonder if this is a massive contributing factor to the fact that younger people simply aren't drinking. It's not that they're not relieving stress, let's say. It's that they're turning to much cheaper and much harder drugs and alcohol as opposed to going to the pub and having a few beers. In the 1983-84 federal budget, Australia's excise system was fundamentally changed by the Hawke Labor government. That government introduced a program of 6 monthly indexation for all excise rates, except for the rates on crude oil and LPG, so that the government's excise revenue would keep pace with inflation. However, draft beer is exempt from the biannual hikes as part of a 2-year holiday that commenced back in August 2025. So if you go to the pub and you get a pint, you won't, hopefully, your pub's not stinging you with an increase. But maybe they are. Since then, the spirits sector...
That's generous, isn't it? What was that thing? The chocolate rations have increased. Hooray. Thank you, big brother.
Exactly. Since then, the spirits sector has called for an extension to include draft spirits, but this was vetoed by the Senate. No fun for you. Wine, too, is not impacted by the hikes, as it is subject to a separate tax system. So next time you go into the bottle-o and you're looking around and you go, I can buy, by volume of alcohol, I can buy a hell of a lot more wine for my money than I can buy beer. That's why. The Federal Treasurer at the time, Paul Keating, said that the new program of biannual indexation of excise rates would help maintain the real inflation-adjusted value of the government's excise revenue. That program of 6 monthly indexation has been in place ever since, and has contributed to the situation we are now experiencing, 43 years later, where Australia has some of the most expensive beer in the world. And if we're worried about third spaces disappearing from public life, would it help to revive a local pub culture and live music that goes along with it? I certainly think so, and I think part of the Australian spirit has slowly died as we've killed this industry. But Ardeet, what do you think about this? Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's probably not going to surprise. I was thinking I'm going to sort of come in here and try and straight face it. I think this is a great idea. No, it's a shocking idea. I've never been in favour of this. And right off the bat, the obvious observation, particularly with where it's started to go and bump up against the cost of living, the obvious observation has to be the comparison with the path taken by pushing up the price of tobacco and the ensuing black market we saw there with all of its problems. It's, I'm not the world's smartest person, but I can sit here and say this has reached the stage where we will expect to see same problems what we've seen with tobacco as same problems we'll see with alcohol as what we've seen with tobacco. I will be astounded if it goes any other way, because it's become lucrative to compete against that excise percentage. When you've got something like when you've got a product that the government taxes are adding 2, 5, 12% or something, 258%, then people look at that and they think, I can sort of live with being stung by that degree. But when you get it to the levels that we're seeing with what was the exact percentage? You read it out before. It's an absurd percentage.
So today, for a 700 ml bottle of spirits, you pay $30 of the retail price as excise before GST is applied.
Yeah, and that is an amount that people are going to flick into the mindset as they did with the chop and the other ones, and thinking, listen, the alternative is not to give up drinking, the same way that people said, a lot of people said the alternative is not to give up smoking. So that's not an alternative. What my thing has to be is, where do I get what I want cheaper? And to think that we're not going to end up having we've already got black market for grog, obviously, but to think we're not going to get to the level that we've seen with tobacco, of course we are. And it's that $30 for something like that, with the cost of living problems that we've got now and the social issues, it's enough for people to say, stuff it, I'm taking the risk. And it's enough for a lot of businesses to start doing same things what they did with tobacco. Okay, it's worth me taking the risk under the table, because they can still be competitive amongst the black market, but still make a decent amount of money. So yeah, I blind Freddie could see where this one is going to go. And if it was a case of I don't know, say there was environmental factors, there was a malt blight or a hops blight, so all around the world alcohol was expensive, you would say, okay, well, that's something you live with. But the fact is that Australia is one of the most expensive places to buy beer and spirits. I think it's somewhere up in the top 3 in the Western world. Apparently, Norway and Finland can be higher, but we are way up there near the top. So we've got a situation that has been artificially created. We've got a market that's been artificially corrupted, as government, with all their good intentions, so often does. On the whether or not pub culture and live music would thrive again, I've got to say I'm in two minds about that. Instinctively, I feel like it could be a shot in the arm. I'm also thinking that it feels like Australian culture to a degree has shifted, as it appears to have in other parts of the Western world as well. It's not quite the social place it used to be, and I think I also think too during the pandemic with the coof, that sort of was a bit of a real sort of kick in the guts for live venues and for pubs. And I don't know that they're fully recovered from that as yet. The live music side, I suppose I have a sense of optimism about that, because in this era of AI, where there's a lot of artificial music or a lot of artificially enhanced music coming out, it may well be that live music finds more and more of a niche, because people actually want to go and see somebody playing live, and you can't fake being on stage and playing. And you certainly can't, you might have things that you can enhance it as you're singing and playing and doing stuff, but you're still a live person performing. So I'm not quite sure whether that would be a revival of traditional live music venues, whether it'll be a completely different format entirely, or whether I'll be completely wrong and live music will become a thing of the past. But to me, the social nature of a gathering place for that social contact, I think, is extremely important. And the reality is, alcohol is a social lubricant. Sure, you and I have talked about it before. It has its problems. There's a whole lot of things wrong with it, but it's also intimately tied with humanity's social experience. And I think giving a few years with taking the foot off the brake on this constant ratcheting up of the government's need to keep their excise at the levels they want, taking the foot off the brake and seeing what happens for a few years is an experiment worth doing. So, look, that's how I think about it. What do you think about the actual excise itself, and what do you think about the possibilities of how it might apply to pubs and what could happen if that was changed?
I guess a lot of my frustration stems from this sort of like it's a bit of a like nanny state idea of, well, we need this amount of income. We need to regulate the industry, beer. Too many people are getting drunk all the time. We can't have that. Da 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 da. And so I've always kind of been against this. I hate that when I go overseas, I spend a lot more time out socially in and around. Of course, I'm sightseeing and stuff like that too, of course. But even when I lived overseas, we would spend a lot more time at pubs and things like that because it was affordable to go and do it. You weren't spending hundreds of dollars just for a night out, We could go and have 5 or 6 beers with dinner, and it only cost us, $20-$30. Like it wasn't a problem. I literally can't do that here. We went out for lunch the other day with some family, and one pint was quote unquote cheap, was $14, I think, for a pint, which actually is quite affordable here in Australia. But like,
yeah, I'm going wow, because you said that was cheap, and I'm thinking, yeah, that is at the cheap.
Yeah. Like, and that's what's shocking, right? Is spending that amount of money on a pint of beer at a venue. There wasn't even live music or anything like that. It's just, I think it's gone too far. And my problem with like excises that are linked to inflation and stuff like that in a situation like this is that we know that the, real wages have been stagnant for a long time and so on and so forth. And I understand the government's like, look, well, we don't want to lose money, but no one does, mate. Like, so what's going to happen is you're going to lose money because people will stop purchasing it. It will stop being sold. And as a result, your revenue is going to go down. Exactly like the tobacco situation. And I'm glad you brought that up because this is literally the same thing as what I'm seeing. We've seen COVID just absolutely smash the live venue industry. A lot of venues shut down. A lot of venues were bought up by much, much larger organizations as well. And even those big companies are suffering. You know, Woolies spun off their pubs and clubs and all of that to a separate business because it was just dragging on their portfolio. So I think this is one idea that I'm actually surprised, like, hasn't been more popular, and I do hope there becomes more conversation around this, because I do think we're going to lose something, and I think we've already begun to lose it. And I think the younger people are, you know, the sort of 18, 19, early 20s, those guys don't have a pub and club culture like I did and the generations before me. That third space is dying. We've become less religious, which is fine. And now we're not doing the pub stuff either. So it's like, for a lot of people, there really isn't a third space outside of the home and work. And so I think that's going to harm our culture. And with the live music things, I think you're right. There's a bit of optimism there that people will start craving more authentic, real-life interactions, and as such will turn to live music again. But a lot of live music is played in these third spaces, like pubs and churches and other places, and beer gardens and things like that. So it's a natural fit for that sort of that pub culture. And so I think if we can find a way, because we were talking about this as well when we were talking about sort of like the death of live music, the ARIA Awards really struggling, Triple J not being what it was, and all of this. I'm looking at all of that. If you step back for a second and you look across the board, what I feel like is happening is the old Australian culture is dying, and it's being replaced with crap on our smartphones. Like, realistically, what are we replacing it with? The answer is nothing. TikTok. Is that really what we want? No, I don't think so. And we need to do something about it. And big part of why these things are dying is because we're just getting freaking hammered. I shouldn't be spending $14 on a bloody pint of beer. What's the minimum wage these days? It's like $26. You can buy 2 pints for working for an hour. That's disgusting. Like, that's a real kick in the teeth, you know?
Like if you were spending that and your wage had been re-indexed to inflation twice a year, so it was keeping pace with that, we'd have a very different opinion on it. But it didn't. It hasn't been.
Yeah. No, exactly right. I'm glad you added that, because yes, my problem isn't that it's too expensive. It's become out of reach because inflation has been high, because it's been continuously indexed, but other things haven't. And so what we're seeing is the average Aussie is now, they're going out less. I know I am, and I'm doing quite well. Like I think I'm in a much more fortunate position than a lot of other Aussies, and I'm going out a hell of a lot less because it adds up too much. And I go, do I want? There's also this like perception of value. Is this worth my time? Nah, not really. So I'm not going to do that. And so what we are seeing, anecdotally, but you know, this is at least what I'm seeing, is there are a lot more people that are getting into like home brewing and things like that, which is a double-edged sword. I'm sort of glad, because I've been brewing for quite a number of years. So I'm sort of glad that there's like an interest in this. But at the same time, I do fear that the government's just going to crack down on that whole side of things as well and go, well, if you're not getting my excise money from this, I'm going to start taxing this more or something like that, right? Because they got to make their money somehow. But also we are seeing, and there's been a few news stories recently on people basically buying bootleg spirits that are being sold in bottle shops, shockingly cheap. So, you know, you get a 700 ml bottle of, I think one of the big ones was a vodka that was something like $35. which is shockingly like hands down the cheapest bottle you can buy, and a lot of it's industrial vodka or ethanol that's made for it's not quote unquote not safe for human consumption because there are byproducts in it. It's generally used for like cleaning or industrial purposes and things like that. So there is a real danger.
Cleaning.
Yeah, there is a real danger that and I think we may see, unfortunately, starts to see the rise of those sorts of things happening. Exactly what we've seen happening in the tobacco industry. So this is, in my mind, I'm looking at this going, it's going the exact same way. And what I don't think is going to happen is the government is just going to go, nah. They're going to bury their head in the sand and pretend that it's not happening. And we're going to end up in the same place. And we'll be talking about this in 2 years going, remember that time we talked about, banging it on the head and actually going, throw us a bone, right? We know Albo listens to the podcast. Albo, throw us a bone, knock the excise on the head, and let's just see what happens. Do it for 2 years and just see what happens.
Test it.
Just test it, and see if that kind of helps revive a little bit of this industry. I don't think they'll do it. I think that'll just continue as it is, unfortunately. But it is incredibly frustrating to watch it happen in real time. And just, we can point to it and go, this is what's doing it. And the government's like, oh, well, we need our money. It's like, well, you're not going to have any. You're not going to have any.
What can we do? We've got to have our excise.
Yep. And what are you going to do when there's no excise money coming in because everyone's found alternatives in the black market, and now we live in a bloody criminal state because everyone's doing the dodgy. So, look, I don't see this ending well because I really don't see the government actually enacting a genuinely smart policy here. But look, we'll see what happens. As I love to say, watch this space.
Indeed. Hey, speaking of space, I did like your point about a third space. I hadn't really heard that terminology before. I wasn't particularly familiar about it. I think that's a great concept. I like that point.
And I should say, don't know where I read that originally. Not my. I didn't come up with it, so I can't take credit for it. But yeah, it is important, those third spaces where you can socially. Traditionally, it was like church or like a village market or other things like that, where you can come together, spend time together in a social sort of generally more of a relaxed kind of space where as a community, as friends can come and gather, and it's outside of the home and it's outside of work. So you have that third space. What is that? And it is important. People need somewhere to go and kind of just, have some time. That's that social time. And if you're listening to this and go, I don't have something like that, I think you should probably look for one, because I think it would do you some good to have a third space that you can spend some time in. I definitely find value in it, or have throughout my life, whether it be sports or a sports club or something like that. Just to somewhere you can go that's outside of the house and needs to relax. What does that look like for you? All right, let's move on. It's now time for our Two Ticks Town Talk.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, we're going to the South Australian town of Tantanoola to learn about a cryptid that was terrorizing the town in the late 1800s and possibly might still be out there today. So Tantanoola is a town in the regional southeast of South Australia, approximately 30 k's northwest of Mount Gambier, right near the border of Victoria. It's 15 k's from the beach, so you'd call it coastal, but it's not exactly a beach town. And there's a very large Lake Bonnie that sits between the town and the ocean. Lake Bonnie's it's sort of cigar-shaped. But this isn't a Two Ticks Lake Talk, so enough about the lake, all right? Don't get me too excited about the lake. A town was proclaimed at its current location in 1879, as that same year the Beachport to Mount Gambier railway line was opened, which caused a bit of controversy as it went straight down the middle of the town, literally cutting the town in half from north to south. So, look, to be fair, though, there wasn't much of a town there at the time. I think you could have moved some of the houses, but anyway. The town was derived from the local Aboriginal word Tantanoola, which means like boxwood or brushwood hill or camp. Also, it's been suggested that it is used to describe a place where the women come to meet. Originally, the town was named Lucyton by Governor Jervis after his daughter, Lucy Caroline, in 10th of July, 1879. But I can't do that, mate. You can't just name a town after your daughter. So it was changed by Governor Robinson to Tantanoola in the 4th of October, 1888. But what we care about, the story that I want to tell you begins in 1891. A mysterious animal was on the prowl in the local area. And it all started when Aboriginal shearers working on grazier's John Cameron's property at an area called German Creek, which is just south of the town. They came running up to him one night, scared by a strange wild animal that they said didn't belong in Australia. The beast, they said, had so frightened their dogs that the mutts were cowering in their huts. The grazier basically told them to piss off, and he didn't really care too much, telling stories, he reckoned, until the very next night when it happened again. This time, John Cameron found tracks, and while they were looking, they looked like a dog. They were much, much larger, measuring about 10 centimeters across, much larger than any dog Cameron had seen. 9 months later, also at German Creek, sheep station manager John Livingston was told by an Aborigine of a strange animal stalking the property. Sightings seemed to die off for a while until December 1892 in the town itself. Walter Taylor and his wife were driving home in their horse buggy when they saw a strange animal slinking across the road ahead. The beast was brown with stripes, about 1/2 meter tall and almost 1 meter long, with a long sweeping tail that brought its length to about 1.5 meters. The animal, which he swore wasn't a dingo, disappeared into a stand of thick tea tree bush. Several property owners also came forward to report finding sheep that had been devoured, leaving only bloodied skin and bones that had been licked clean. And a man named Long said he'd found one of his bullocks had flesh eaten from its back as if something had attacked it in the night. The phantom predator was soon dubbed the Tantanoola tiger by the newspapers all across Australia. So this story went nationwide. Everybody was very, very interested in what was going on. Locals were worried that it was only a matter of time before the enemy of their flock becomes a man-eater. And as such, they even organized groups to escort children to and from school because they were so terrified that this tiger would come and devour their children. There was only one thing to do, of course, in situations like this. You gather the men and the rifles, mount a search party, and find and slay this beast. This was in mid-May 1893. Property manager John Livingston, who believed that the sheep station he managed was at the center of the tiger's activity, convinced nearly 24 men to join him in a search of the German Creek area. He led them into a thicket of tea tree bush and they broke into small groups and took up positions all around this patch, while riflemen were posted at strategic points, waiting for the tiger to emerge and to shoot it dead. The men walked into the tea tree thicket from the south and beat the grass from the north, shouting and yelling to scare anything towards the rifles. A dog with one of the groups got the scent of something and ran into the thicket. Then it jumped back in a fright. There was something dark moving in the bushes. The excited hunters closed in. They plowed through the thicket, and what they found was a black swan sitting on its nest, squawking at them, very, very angry about what was happening. Another group of men set a small fire to scare the tiger out of hiding, thinking, we'll smoke him out. But all they found was wallabies, bounded ahead of the men and the flame, but nothing else came out, tried to escape. Arriving back in town, the search was declared a failure. The Border Watch newspaper, the local newspaper, their correspondent wrote, quote, "It is not probable that another hunt will be organised till some further evidence of the strange animal in the locality is forthcoming." It's great. Which is a very polite way of saying, you're all idiots. But something was still out there killing livestock, and sightings did continue. In September 1893, a farmer, William Johns of Vulcan Park, was woken at 2 a.m. by his dogs and chickens going crazy. He found very large paw prints, about 11 centimetres across, and a policeman the next day took a plaster cast which he sent to Adelaide Zoo. The zoologist compared those with a tiger and a St. Bernard and found that whatever was stalking the Tantanoola countryside wasn't feline, but in fact canine. Then, in October, well, I mean, look, it's just a bloody paw print, so I don't know how much they can tell from that, but still. In October 1893, the nightmare appeared to be over. The beast was dead, and it wasn't feline or canine, but it was porcine. A man from the town of Maleficent, which is just to the north of Tantanoola, named Kenny Matheson. He had succeeded in poisoning an absolutely huge feral pig that he reckoned had killed 200 of his sheep on his property alone that year. Oh. It had even completely skinned one of his horses from chest to the knee. And Mr. Matheson said that the pig had hidden and been living in tea tree scrub by day and then hunted the livestock by night. And after many unsuccessful attempts to shoot and poison the beast, he finally got it by mixing a paste of flour, sugar, and phosphorus and pouring that over a dead sheep. The boar, he said, was more than 2.7 meters long from snout to tail and had sharp 9-inch tusks. He sent absolutely huge. He sent these tusks of the boar to the Express and Telegraph newspaper, along with a letter describing how he had killed the monster. He wrote, quote, "I feel quite satisfied that in killing this pig, I have killed the tiger that was doing so much damage to my sheep and wreak cattle and havoc in the district of Tantanoola." End quote. The newspaper basically reckoned he was right. They said, it appears as though Mr. Matheson has achieved the killing of the Tantanoola tiger. Except that didn't explain the paw prints. As you can probably tell, a pig's hoof is very distinctly different from feline or canine paw prints. You know, dogs and cats, fairly similar sort of paw print, certainly different from a pig's hoof. And Mr. Matheson's victory didn't stop the killing that was going on, the sheep and the leaving the big paw prints around the town. So he did solve a mystery. It's just, it wasn't the one that we were after. In August 1894, John Livingston's 17-year-old nephew, Donald Smith, was riding in German Creek property near Lake Bonny. when he noticed a flock of sheep in distress. Investigating, he saw at a distance of only a few yards away, a large animal walking firmly towards the tea tree scrub with a full-blown sheep struggling in its mouth.
Oh.
Smith had never seen a tiger, but he felt sure that he was now looking at one. He said it stood about 75 centimeters off the ground and was about 1.3 meters long and had dull stripes all over its brown body and much more distinctive stripes on its head and face.
Huh.
Absolutely terrified, Smith rode to his uncle's house, and John Livingston sent him to the Mount Gambier police station to demand that they do something. The inspector in charge believed the claim and dispatched 2 mounted constables and a black tracker to search for the tiger. Now, I should explain, because this sounds pretty racist, but black trackers were the term given to, it's a historical term for an Aboriginal person who was employed as a tracking expert. So it wasn't specifically derogatory, but obviously this day and age, we wouldn't really call them that. But this is how they are described in the history of this. These men returned to the tea tree stands and spent a day basically beating back bush, trying to look through the scrub. And while the search basically the previous year had turned up nothing, this one did yield something tangible near the spot where Donald Smith had seen what he described as the tiger. The soil showed claw marks as evidence of struggle, probably with the sheep. Following the tracks, the policeman and the black tracker found small tufts of bloodied wool hung up on ferns, leading them to believe that the beast had carried the sheep in this direction. They also found very large paw prints measuring 13 centimeters wide.
Oh, and the Tantanoola tiger's getting bigger.
It's getting bigger. And deep enough to suggest that the animal was quite heavy. Through 1895, there were continued sightings of the Tantanoola tiger every month or so, but they basically didn't find anything, any more significant evidence. In response, John Livingston sent 2 men and a black tracker to stake out the area for a week, thinking, if we camp out here waiting for the beast, surely something will come along. But they weren't the only ones doing this. Thomas Donovan from Nelson on the Glenelg River was a crack shot who'd spent many years hunting in the bush. Likes to think of himself as a bit of a trophy hunter, really. Recently, he had been on the prowl for the tiger in the area, but after 2 sightings by reliable witnesses on an estate near Mount Salt, Donovan and his partner, William Taylor, arrived in the area on the 21st of August, 1895. They consulted the estate manager, a Mr. R.G. Watson, and told him that they'd planned to spend a week or so in search of the beast. Mr. Watson told them to start their hunt on the range about 6.5 kilometers west of Mount Salt, where they had seen the beast. So Donovan and Taylor struck out, camping the night about halfway from their destination. They got an early start the next morning and hiked to the appointed spot just before dawn. And the sun had barely cracked over the horizon when the men saw something standing out of the ordinary. About 300 meters away across the plain, a herd of sheep was clearly in distress, disturbed by a particularly large animal. The hunters were too far away to see it clearly, but at this distance, it didn't look like a tiger. It looked like a really big dog. Whatever it was, the beast was singling out sheep and attacking them. So the men crept closer until they were about 90 meters away, and as they watched, the beast knocked a sheep over and sat over it on its haunches. Seizing the opportunity, Donovan raised his Winchester rifle, took steady aim, and fired. The beast was hit hard, but that didn't stop it. It didn't drop. It ran. It bolted as fast as it could, with Donovan and Watson chasing it. After almost 200 meters, the creature finally tumbled and fell onto the earth. where Donovan and Taylor slowly approached cautiously, and they found the dying animal. Like, to be fair, you don't want to get too close to whatever this thing was. The bullet had entered just below the right shoulder blade, piercing the heart and exited through the ribs on the left side. So, an absolutely fantastic shot. What they saw dead in front of them wasn't a tiger. It looked like a male dog, but no breed of dog that they'd ever seen before. Just over 2 p.m., Thomas Donovan arrived in Mount Gambier with the body and immediately handed it over to a taxidermist named Mr. Marks. Dozens of people crowded around the taxidermist shop, hoping to get a glimpse at the process and the beast. Everybody speculated on what it was. It was too big for a dingo, maybe a dingo crossbred with a larger dog. Mr. Marks and several others who'd been to Germany and other parts of Europe declared that it was neither. They agreed that it was some sort of European wolf. Another gent suggested it might have been a Syrian wolf. It stood close to 91 centimeters tall and was nearly 1.5 meters from snout to tail. The beast had a wolf-like head. It was 25 centimeters from the back of its skull to its nose and 33 centimeters from ear tip to ear tip. Its teeth were almost 2.5 centimeters long. The fur was dark brown along the back, and its tail and fawn had grey on its head, sides, belly, and flanks, while its powerful legs were like a yellowy colour. The paws more closely resembled those of a wolf than a dog and made a wide 11-centimetre track, marrying up with the prints that had been cast in 1893 at Mr. John's yard in Tantanoola. All evidence suggested that this was definitely the tiger that they had all been hunting. By Thursday night, Thomas Donovan had received 8 or 9 telegrams from Adelaide asking how much that they wanted for the wolf, for the carcass. But he decided he would keep it for himself. He charged more than 400 people 1 shilling each to gaze at the animal. And he'd soon take it to the Adelaide Zoo.
Not?
Yeah, why not? He took it to the Adelaide Zoo, and it would be on display for years in his hometown of Nelson. In those first few days after he'd shot the wolf, some who'd been the most vocal believers of a beast roaming the countryside, now, of course, they didn't believe that this was the creature. Of course, it can't be that. It's a giant tiger. John Livingston, he wasn't satisfied. He said that this was not the same animal as described by so many witnesses. Mr. Younger, a witness who had followed the creature previously, was absolutely sure that it was not the same animal. So too was Mr. Houston, who'd seen it just a few weeks prior. However, Mr. McClay, who had spotted it in that area, reckoned it was the same beast, as did young Mr. Donald Smith. So, jury's out on this. The town's paper, the Border Watch, sided with both sides, printing, quote, "However frightened one might be at it, it seems inconceivable that the idea of a tiger should come to mind." But then they also said, it is highly improbable that 2 such animals as a wolf and a tiger should be roaming in the same locality of this district. So, they were of no help. How things
got them clicks.
Yeah, how things haven't changed, right? Unless, of course, what some witnesses had seen was possibly a different creature, perhaps a thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger believed to be extinct on the mainland by this time. At this time, the Tasmanian tiger was still alive, but it was alive in Tasmania, and it's not inconceivable to think that there were at least a few still on the mainland. Of course, how a wolf did end up in South Australia is another question altogether. One theory was that it had survived on a shipwreck on the rugged coastline. That doesn't really explain why a wolf was on a ship. Though another offered by the Adelaide Zoo's director was that it was a half-breed or a crossbreed wolf that had escaped from a Victorian zoo, where several such specimens had once been kept, which I think is probably the most likely explanation. It might have been stuffed, but the Tantanoola tiger was still on the prowl, apparently. On the very same day, though, the wolf was first examined, a young man named Montz, working for Mrs. Wells on the range between Tantanoola and the coast, said he saw the creature in broad daylight. The animal was, as he said, unquestionably a tiger and not a wolf or a dog. But, youths are prone to exaggeration and making up stories. In the next few years, the Tantanoola tiger would be repeatedly seen in the district, but gradually memory of the tiger began to fade, and by the turn of the century, basically, it was revived only by a handful of sightings. And, there were other Tantanoola tiger sightings in Victoria and even as far north as New South Wales. So it very much became a bit of a folklore, the cryptid sort of tale. But interestingly, in 1962, the tale of the Tantanoola tiger was revived when across the Victorian border in the tiny town of Ozenkaduk, local inhabitants swore that they had seen a Tasmanian tiger. Thylacine reports continued in early 1968. Walkabout magazine, they did a special investigation speaking to people in the coastal southeastern South Australia and northwestern Victoria who swore that they'd seen a thylacine. The reports said more than 100 people had reported the creature, including a busload of people who had all said that they had seen it alongside their bus. Or was it a case of shared hallucination? In the 50 years since that article, though, the sightings of thylacines continue in southeastern South Australia, with the most recent cluster of sightings only a few years ago, including several captured on intriguing, if not conclusive, videos. But there's one place you can be assured of seeing the creature that was shot by Thomas Donovan in 1895. And that's at the Tantanoola Tiger Hotel, where the taxidermied beast still holds pride of place in its glass case. And I can tell you, it doesn't look as vicious or exciting as I'm sure you probably think it would be. Look, it's a taxidermied dog from 1895. I think you can imagine how well it's held up all these years. But it's still there and you can still see it. Today, in the town of Tantanoola, the local industries include a Kimberly-Clark pulp and paper manufacturing facility, but broadly speaking, it's rural farming area, native flower and herb farming as well. It is a quiet little town with a very interesting part of Australian cryptid history. And of course, if you believe, the tiger is still out there to this day.
Very interesting. I have not heard of the Tantanoola tiger before.
What do you reckon?
I quite like stories like that. Look, what do I reckon? I reckon that it's quite conceivable there was a few thylacines still hanging around for still hanging around for a while from the time that they were declared extinct. You can't say that, well, we know that we've got all of them. And I think it's also possible that there was a dog bred with a bigger animal or a wolf, or whether it's a wolf or whether it's something big, who knows? But I think it's quite possible to have the two of them actually together. So I think it's reasonable to say that people could have seen a thylacine and that there was a large dog actually taking off the sheep, because once people's attention is heightened, they're on the lookout for things. And also there is the thing of the usual the sort of what would you say, wanting to see this stuff, so you convince yourself that you've seen it. But it sounds like there was enough reports that they saw something big doing damage, So, look, I tend to have a credibility score on that being actually something, possibly the one that was captured. I'd put that around about the 67 to 77% credibility. What about you?
Yeah, I think I love stories like this. I love cryptids. Like they're just I just love them so much. This local mystery, this creature in the night. I think a lot of people do like them. There's this like folklore thing of human culture all around the world where we just kind of like latch on to these stories. And I think you're probably right. I think it's probably a combination of, well, they definitely shot whatever this wolf creature was. And looking at the photos of the taxidermied specimen, it does look like a wolf, but it also looks kind of doggish. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was kind of like, either a throwback of a wild wolf with some sort of deformity that's just got huge. A wild dog that's just got huge, or some sort of crossbreed between a wolf that's been either accidentally or intentionally released into the wild. Because let's remember, this is the 1890s. People were pretty frivolous with animals back then. We'll just let it go into the wild and stuff like that. So
they've definitely got a taxidermy carcass.
Yes, and it does look like a very large dog / wolf creature, right? So Clearly that was killing sheep in the area. Obviously, it was found in the sort of vicinity of where all these other sightings were done. But what's interesting is it's like sort of broadly speaking, its shape matches, but it doesn't have stripes on it. It's not a tiger. And that was the distinctive sort of idea is this, that it has these stripes. But also there's a part of me knowing a bit about human psychology. We do have a tendency to exaggerate stories and kind of false memories and things like that. There was a tiger that reportedly had escaped from a zoo in years previously. And so I do wonder if people were kind of primed to be looking for a creature like this. Yeah. Even if it was just a rumor, that can definitely spread, and you see a thing and you go, oh, that was I saw the tiger and all of this. And very quickly hysteria can kind of take over. So look, and us modern people are no different. Quite
exactly.
Frankly. So is what Donovan shot, and the thing is as well is there is a bunch of books written about this. It's like an ongoing mystery. There's so much to dive into this story. And I've given you like the short version. We may come back and visit this area in the future for another Two Ticks Town talk, because there's another couple of crazy things that went on in this area a little bit after this, as well as there's some interesting geography. So I may do a part 2, but I don't know when. I'm not committing to it yet, but I think I might do some more like cryptids if we can find them and those sorts of things, because
I would like that.
It is quite fun to sort of jump into these local folklores and all of those sorts of things. And look, I'm a bit of a believer. I definitely think there is some thylacines, some Tasmanian tigers that have avoided capture, I guess, or proper video. Yeah, like they're definitely, and I think it's a fool's errand to say, nah, they're all dead. It's like, well, there could have been a little enclave floating around there for a while, and maybe that's what people are seeing. I'm not sure, but I choose to believe.
Yeah. Same here. Obviously by my credibility score, I'm on the belief side.
That's it. All right, let's move on. A threat to thousands of Australian birds and animals outlined as bird flu spreads. Now, this is a huge story, and we're barely going to scratch the surface here. But I've listed a bunch of great resources in the show notes, as always, about this. This is still a developing story. And of course, it's not a particularly nice story as well. So I've also included one about mental health during major events. If you listen to this and you're feeling down, there's a really, really good article from The Conversation specifically about those emotions and everything like that. So,
good on you.
Yeah, which I thought was really valuable. So I wanted to shout that out as well because the story is pretty great. All right, let's get into it. Several seabird species could potentially be wiped out if bird flu continues to spread, according to a review of Australian animals' vulnerability to the disease. More than 2,000 native birds and mammals have been scored on how likely they are to survive the spread of the H5 strain of the bird flu. 5 of them are likely not to make it, while hundreds of other species are expected to suffer a severe reduction in population size. The federal government has released the list ranking species from low to extreme risk based on their vulnerability and susceptibility. You will find this list in the show notes, as always, if you are concerned or you're an avid bird lover and want to be more on the know. It also takes into account their habitat, ecology, behavior, and information discovered in overseas outbreaks. The Herald petrel, listed as critically endangered, is under extreme threat, along with the endangered Christmas Island frigate, lesser noddy, imperial shag, and herd shag, which are birds, and they are regarded as vulnerable species. Invasive Species Council CEO Jack Goff said the list was devastating. He says, quote, "The results are shocking. It really is a list of doom. 5 bird species facing extreme risk. Basically, if bird flu gets into these populations, extinction is what we can expect." End quote. He said that more than 80 different endangered and critically endangered species had high or worse threat rankings. The endangered Tasmanian devil and eastern quolls were also among the highest ranked mammals at risk because, of course, bird flu doesn't just affect birds. They would be likely to survive the virus, but their populations would be severely reduced. And a number of species of dolphins, whales, sea lions, and seals were also likely to experience significant impacts to their population if infected by the H5 bird flu. And yes, that does include elephant seals. So we're all really hoping that Neil the seal, friend of the show, is also going to be okay. The first mass mortality of Australian wildlife from the deadly H5 bird flu virus was confirmed on the island off the South Australia's south coast last week. Epidemiologist Rena McIntyre said that the bird flu strain had mutated to one that was highly concerning. Professor McIntyre said, quote, "This virus, which is a special mutation that arose in 2020, has really caused an unprecedented pattern. What we've seen in other countries is how it's just swept through and decimated different species," end quote. Professor McIntyre said that there was also little information on how susceptible Australian marsupials and monotremes would be to this bird flu. She explains, quote, "We have these unique species of wildlife that don't exist anywhere else in the world, and so it's completely unknown," end quote. Because, of course, we can understand the impacts of this particular virus to other mammal species around the world, as we are one of the last to receive it. But, of course, we have unique flora and fauna here, so we can't estimate what will happen to those guys because there are no other endemic groups of them. Federal Minister for Environment, Murray Watt, said it was likely bird flu would start spreading inland after dozens of coastal detections, and the spring breeding season brought additional risk factors. He said, quote, "This is likely to be a very serious event. We are the last continent in the world to have bird flu, and it's quite remarkable that it hasn't come here already. But what that's meant is that we have we have had time to make sure that we are well prepared, as best prepared as we can be. What we have done over the last couple of years is invest about $47 million in building up populations of our most threatened species around Australia. Some of that was through removing feral cats, feral pigs, and other kinds of invasive species that are reducing those populations. End quote. Mr. Watt said that the challenge to vaccinating wild bird populations were far too great, but trials were underway to see if this was a viable action to take for birds that were in captivity. He explains, quote, "It requires 2 doses of the vaccine. That's hard enough to catch these birds once, let alone twice, to give them a booster. So realistically, it's not possible to vaccinate native wild birds." He continued, "But we've been funding a lot of work in captive breeding, so in the zoos and other facilities, building up the populations of some of our more threatened bird species. That's where we could potentially be looking at vaccinations in a captive environment." End quote. So the situation isn't completely hopeless, but it's bordering on it. It's pretty grim over the near future, and hopefully things will progress in the right direction. But right now, we really don't know how this is going to shake out. So, Ardeet, the big question is, have you stocked up on eggs yet?
Yeah, because eggs keep so well. Yeah, mind you, I do love my eggs.
Me too. I myself, I would eat almost a dozen a week. So it's going to be a big blow to me.
Yeah, if I didn't crack a dozen, I'd be close. I'd be close to it. I regularly have eggs. Look, one way or other, this is something Australia's going to have to learn to handle, and I don't think it's going to get any better. You know, the genie's out of the bottle. We've seen this pattern across the rest of the places where it's occurred. It's something to be managed, not really something to be eradicated. Look, the projections on which of the native species might go. I mean, that's always, it's always sad to hear. This type of thing is going to hit them hard because they don't have a natural defence against it, and by the time that they start to develop one, they're pretty much decimated as a population. And it's also one of those things too. It's just another thing out there that you think, okay, well, we know we're probably going to hear about chook farms getting hit, or bird sanctuaries getting hit. So in some ways, I suppose we're lucky that it's taken this long to get here, but in many ways, it was probably inevitable that it was going to turn up. I don't know the. There's a word to describe how these things spread, and that I don't know the exact way that functions, but it was interesting how it did seem to come all at once along multiple coasts. Now, maybe that's because those birds do migrate and spread out, but it was just interesting to note that sort of like it was WA, and then it was South Australia, and then it was Victoria, and seeing all that happening happening in a very short time across that area. It'd be interesting to know just how that occurred that way. I've got to say I don't understand that, but whether I understand it or not, it's here. Look, I suppose it's going to be one of those things to, we play it by ear, we see where it actually gets hit. It does sound as though there's been, thankfully, a bit of forethought and a bit of planning in anticipation of this. So obviously you can't plan for everything, but it's not as if this has arrived and the bureaucrats are throwing up their hand and saying, "Oh my God, no one ever thought this would happen." So I do have to give some credit where it's due, that it appears as though there has been some professional planning done on this one. So that's that's a big plus for them, and the type of thing that to see the system working that way is heartening. How it's going to impact our poultry prices and our eggs and associated industries with the whole bird-related industries. Well, having said that, chooks are probably the main industry we have anyway, unless I'm missing something completely obvious. I mean, we have ducks and geese, and I suppose we have pet birds and things like that. But yeah. I suppose the poultry's the main one. So I suppose it's wait and see on it. We've got the advantage of being able to get look at what's been done done overseas, where they've been actually putting programs into it. They've learned how to detect and reporting mechanisms on sick and dead poultry and wild birds, and also the passing on to mammals, the restricting of the movements, the quarantines affecting farms, and how you control the movements of like the birds and the eggs and animals, and feed and equipment. Creating these protection and surveillance zones, what they've done elsewhere with biosecurity. Look, I suppose for me, it's disappointing that it's finally arrived, but it does sound as though we've actually got some preparation in place. And unfortunately for something like this, that's about the best you can do. So to me, it's a bit of a wait and see. I hope that it doesn't go as badly as what I think you would probably expect it probably is going to go. But credit to the people in charge on this one. They are prepared and haven't been caught flat-footed. So what do you think about it?
Look, I guess much the same. It's good that we did have time, but it was kind of an inevitability that this was going to come. I'm a bit like you. I'm actually surprised it kind of hasn't come sooner. And they've tried what they can to prepare, but at the end of the day, there's not really much. There's not a huge amount that you really can do, short of mobilizing thousands of volunteers and attempting to vaccinate every bird, which is basically impossible. There's not really much else you could do. So it's like, it is possible that you could have had, vaccinated every bird. Is the Australian public willing to bear the cost of that program? I don't think so. I also think there is sort of like harm and danger in doing that as well. It's not without risks and those sorts of things. This is a bit one of these situations where it's kind of look, we've tried what we can, but at the end of the day, this is kind of nature at work. This is what happens.
You sort of have to triage it, don't you?
Yeah, you really at the end of the day, this is what happens. It's these things have happened before, long before humans were around, and they'll happen long after we've gone, and we can just attempt to protect what we have. I think a lot of the birds in captivity, we do have a breeding population of a lot of these endangered species and things like that. If they can vaccinate those birds, at least then we can hopefully at least keep the genome alive. It's in some limited capacity, but I think that's really kind of the best thing, the best outcome in a worst case scenario is, look, we've got these birds here. Hopefully we can start a breeding program and maybe release them out into the wild and things like that. But unfortunately, this is one of these situations where we really hope for the best and we kind of prepare for the worst as best we can, but there's not really a huge amount more that we could expect from the government other than, all right, we're throwing half the GDP at it, where everyone's got 3 birds, you got to vaccinate, which is just, realistically speaking, you can't be doing that sort of stuff. So if you have birds, maybe talk to someone about what the cost of vaccinating them is and things like that. The poultry industry hopefully won't be too heavily impacted, but I guess we won't know. I don't know what steps are being taken to kind of. We've seen this in other countries, most famously in the US a couple of years ago, where a lot of their birds were killed or had to be destroyed as a result of it, and egg prices went through the roof and so on and so forth. So, and to a lesser extent, we were affected at a similar time, different strain of bird flu, but, $10 things of eggs, or you couldn't get eggs and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's going to be frustrating for me on an individual basis, but it is very upsetting to see what this could potentially do, not just to the bird life, but also to our other native animals and things like that. Humans can catch this, though it is quite rare. It has happened with this particular strain elsewhere in the world. As far as we know, there has not been any recorded cases in Australia so far. It is very rare, so it's not something that you need to be particularly scared of, that, oh no, I'm going to get it or anything like that. Unless you're like eating wild bird poo or something like that. If that's your thing, maybe just knock that on the head for a while.
Hold off on the going out and foraging to be a little wild bird poo snacks.
Just pump the brakes on that. Maybe
at least for a few months.
Yeah, look, maybe this is the intervention that you need to kick the habit. All right. But other than that, there's not a grave concern to humans, thankfully. But of course, yes, there is a concern to other mammals, particularly like our native wildlife. So again, this is a watch and see sort of situation. This is a developing story. You possibly heard about it in the news a couple of weeks ago once it was first detected, and we're starting to see it sort of unfolding. So we may talk about this again as this story develops, but if you are interested and do want to have more information, have a look at the show notes, and of course, just keep your eyes on the news as the story develops. But otherwise, let's move on. It's now time for This Week in Australian History, and hopefully something happy has happened. Probably not.
Right, this week in Australian history, we're covering the 7th to 13th of August. August 7th on 1946, the Overseas Telecommunications Commission is established, and that was to manage Australia's international telecommunications services after the war. So they're a central role in like developing the overseas telephone and telegraph, and then later they got into the satellites and eventually merged into Telstra.
Of course, that makes sense. Yeah,
it's funny, and let me put on the old man hat for a while here. It is funny to remember how. Like an interstate call, let alone an overseas call, was such a don't stay on too long, and you'd tee it up, in advance, and if it was Ned or something, you'd sort of have the kids we'd be lined up as kids to say 1 minute, make sure it didn't go over, and now. You look at it and you think, oh yeah, I'll call somebody, I don't know, over in Paraguay and have a bit of a chat to them, and it's basically nothing. So, it's great.
We recorded the podcast when you were in Japan and things like that. My parents were recently in Italy, and we not only did we call them, we like video called them, like, whoa, that was I remember seeing like shows like Beyond 2000 and stuff like that about that. Oh, in the future you'll be able to video call, now we don't even think twice.
No, it's interesting, and that's how it goes. So great, but it is interesting to have that perspective and to know that in another 30 years there'll be something else just as amazing. 1994, the Tasty nightclub raid in Melbourne. saw 463 patrons strip search during police raids. And there's controversy and legal action after that, as you would expect, by the people who were detained.
No, the Victorian police overstepping their jurisdiction?
Yeah. Oh, they must have brought them over from South Australia. August 8th, 1895, the steamship SS Cutterton strikes Seal Rocks in New South Wales and founders, killing 55 persons. 55 persons, 55 people. 1914, enlistment for World War I begins, so offices opened across Australia. 1918, Australian forces contribute to one of the greatest advances in World War I at the Battle of Amiens, and the Aussie troops did play a leading role in that battle. August 9th, 1915, Alexander Burton died at Lone Pine in Gallipoli, Turkey. He was awarded the VC for his actions during the Battle of Lone Pine. 1942, HMAS Canberra is sunk in the Battle of Savo Island, that's near the Solomon Islands, and was later scuttled. 1962, the federal government bans the drug thalidomide, joined with other companies after they found out it was linked to severe birth defects, and was a global response to one of the most serious pharmaceutical disasters of the 20th century, which I think is a fair comment.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'll leave that one without any further comments. 1987. Julian Knight commits the Hoddle Street Massacre in Melbourne, where he killed 7 people and injured 19 others. 1990. Joan Kerner becomes Victoria's first female premier after John Cain retires from Parliament. So, she did come into some difficult economic conditions there, and Labor were defeated at the subsequent election. That she, I suppose she gave it a crack. How's that damning it with bloody fake praise there? It's funny, I got one of the things in there with Joan. No, this is actually a slightly positive one. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been, maybe it was Andrew Denton or something, but he would get, celebrities and politicians, and it was always a terrible play on words. So he got Joan Kerner to sing Joan Jett's "I Love Rock and Roll." Well, she was miming it there, and I've got to say, I watched her and she launched herself into it fully and gave it, and because she just went into it so openly and embraced the whole silliness of it, she came out looking really good to me. If she had been a little bit sort of hold backish and that standoffish, I should say, I would have thought, but no, she just decided, okay, I'm here, I'm going for it. And I can't remember who else he had on there, but hers is always a standout performance because it was just so incongruous. The Premier of Victoria doing this performance of "I Love Rock and Roll."
Oh, good on her.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought. Good on her, and it's funny because of that. I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for her humanity. August 10th, 1853, Jubilee Festival was held in Hobart to mark the cessation of convict transportation to the colony. Actually, I'm going to ask you this one. In the year, I'm going to ask you, the Broken Hill Proprietary Company, later known as the world's largest mining company, BHP, which then became BHP Billiton, is registered as a company in Victoria. And given your memory, you're probably going to remember this. But what year do you reckon they were registered as a company?
Ooh. I know it's like it's before 1900. Like it's in the 18. I'm going to say 1888 for some reason. Sticks out in my mind.
1885. I'm going to give that
wow.
to you. Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I knew they were really old. So
Yeah.
it's probably one of
I'd forgotten
Australia's oldest continuous companies, I reckon. Probably.
Yeah. Yep. 1914, recruiting begins for the first Australian Imperial Force. Australia had offered a force of 20,000 troops initially to Britain at the outbreak of the First World War. 1920, the Prince's Highways opened, connecting Sydney and Adelaide via Melbourne. August 11th in 1989, a pilot strike crippled domestic air travel in Australia, right across Australia. There's a whole lot of major economic and political consequences, and that contributed to changes in industrial relations. August 12th, 1829, Helen Dance, wife of the captain of the ship Sulphur, cut down a tree to mark the day of the founding of the town of Perth in Western Australia. Now, it's funny in some ways that the founding was cutting down a tree rather than planting one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that always strikes me as odd. So
Wrong tree. We wanted that one.
yeah, exactly. And so after that, her husband, the captain, punched a kangaroo in the face to mark the start of their wildlife preservation program. You know, it's 1900, Frederick Lane wins the men's 200-metre freestyle at the 1900 Summer Olympics. 1916, over the preceding 4 days, Martin O'Mara repeatedly went out and brought in wounded officers and men from no man's land under intense artillery and machine gun fire during the Battle of Pozières, and for his gallantry he was awarded the Victoria Cross. He probably should have got a couple for that. That's just, I'm glad some people have it in them. I don't know if that would be me, DK. I like to think in my mind, I think I hope I rise to the occasion like that, but that would just be horrifying.
Absolutely.
1918, King George V knights John Monash on the battlefield, the first British commander to be knighted in that way for 200 years. August 13, 1940, 3 members of the Australian Cabinet, Air Minister James Fairbairn, Information Minister Sir Henry Gullett and Army Minister Brigadier Geoffrey Scott were killed, along with the Chief of the General Staff of the Australian Army, General Sir Brudnell White, in the Canberra air disaster. So that was a severe blow, understandably, with all those people, to the Menzies government early in the Second World War.
And that's why you don't all fly on the same plane.
Oh, yeah. And finally, 1971, television arrives in the Northern Territory. The ABC officially opens its Darwin station, ABD6, bringing regular television broadcast to the Territory for the first time. So it was a modern communications milestone that was connecting remote communities to the rest of the country. And I'm pretty sure that night on the lounges, there's 1 or 2 of those monster Darwin stubbies cracked. All right, the Forex bottle top quiz this week is on Tasmania, given I'm down here. 4 questions this week, as they were my favourites from the selection I had, but it wasn't quite enough to make a 2-parter from them. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's not going from hardest to easiest, and it's we'll see how we go.
Uh-oh.
First one. What is the real origin of the name Wineglass Bay on the Freycinet, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, Freycinet Peninsula? And if you want to, you can look, without looking up the answer, you can look at the shape of Wineglass Bay on Google Maps, or you might actually know the answer to this as well, which you often tend to know.
Not always. I think it's pronounced Freycinet as well, or something like that.
Freycinet.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's one of the French sailors that I talked about in the Two Ticks Town talk on Shark Bay a couple of weeks ago. And Dirk Hartog Island.
Right.
Yeah. There's a few things named after him, and that is one of the.
Freycinet. Okay.
One of them.
Excellent.
I've been to Wineglass Bay, or I I shouldn't say that. I sailed past Wineglass Bay on a warship. Didn't get time to stop and gaze at the majesty of the the national park, but I can say, I've kind of been there. I am trying to think, because I feel like this is a bit of a trick question, because it is
a trick question. Yeah,
I think a lot of people think it's the shape of the bay, kind of. I don't think it looks really like a wine glass, but I'm trying to think why it's called that, and I want to say it's something about the rocks, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
Oh no!
So I'll say I'll just go with it. Looks like the shape of the wine glass.
Yeah, which you can sort of see what it's going. No, it was, and look, that was a deliberate mislead which you picked up on. But in the early 1800s whaling days, when they brought back the whales to process. Basically, the water was said to run red like wine from the blood of so many whales.
Oh, lovely! Yeah,
yeah. So that's where it actually got its name from. Now this one's a funny one. It's a silly one. Tasmania is home to a museum completely dedicated to what?
What?
Which is it's look, that's a bit of a hard thing, because you might say, well, completely dedicated to pictures, all that. No, it's completely dedicated to, what would be an example? If you had one that was dedicated to footprints of animals, it's that sort of specificity.
Yeah, okay. Like the Museum of Toothbrushes or something like that.
Yes, yep, exactly right.
They are famous for the Mona, but I can't imagine that's. I don't.
No, it's not that. It's really that. It's really that specific.
Something specific. I'm wondering, is it Tasmanian themed, like it's something that's found in Tasmania, or is it like toothbrushes? It could be anywhere. Yeah, right.
Very human and it's very animal.
Very human and animal. Oh, that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
Well, yeah, true. Yeah, no, yes, yeah, you're right. It is.
Oh, goodness gracious!
And it's something that kids would be highly amused at.
Is it? You saying that makes me think it's like vaguely rude. Like, is it a museum of poo or something like that? Are you kidding?
It's exactly the Museum of Poo. In fact, it's called the Museum.
Are you kidding? Oh my gosh.
In Richmond.
What?
Yeah.
What? Okay, you need to tell me more about this, because
it's about, how does poo happen? What's in poo? What do animals poo out? What do humans do? It's just poo all the way.
Wow. That's okay. Oh my gosh. I was going to say the Museum of Farts, but then I thought, no, how do you keep a fart? That doesn't really make sense. So, wow. Okay.
Yes. Now, complete turnaround. At Cape Grim, which is also known as Tantanoola, in the northwest tip, scientists have been measuring something for more than 40 years that is regularly described as the purest of its kind on Earth. What is it?
Oh, the northwestern tip. What's up there? What's up the northwest? Not a lot. I think it's like
No.
farmland, isn't it? I mean, I've never been up there that far, so I don't really know. But is it like river water or something like that? The most purest in the world. That's really thrown me. But what would they be measuring from the tip? There's no river there, I don't think. So that doesn't really make sense. Unless it's like seawater? Or is it like a creature? Is it like shellfish or something?
No, your thinking is in the right direction. It's just a bit lower than what this is.
Is it like seagrass or sand or something like that?
No. What's being measured? Talking about the water is a bit lower than what's actually being measured.
Is it the cleanest air?
It is. It's the cleanest air, and it's because it's travelled thousands of kilometres across the Southern Ocean with almost no human pollution. So there's only 3 sites in the world that do this, and this is one of them. It's tracking baseline air, so pristine air masses that have gone across the ocean without touching land. So they draw it out about 80 metres above the station. They're monitoring greenhouse gases, things like CFCs and halons, aerosols and pollutants, and weather indicators. So it's, I suppose baseline air is a good description of it.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like Tasmania is, other than New Zealand, is so far south. Like the only other, because that air current down there kind of whips around Antarctica, and doesn't really mix too well, I would imagine. Other than maybe Patagonia, like the very tip of like Chile or something like that, maybe the Falkland Islands,
right,
which I can't imagine there's a lot of pollution going on down there. So yeah, that kind of makes sense, really. Yeah.
So now the last one. What unusual colour can Tasmanian devil fur ears and snouts glow under certain light?
Do they glow under UV light? Are they one of those that glows?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we've had this fact come up before. I might have even asked you this.
So they're biofluorescent. They're not bioluminescent, as in they don't put out their own light, but when you glow it on there, they do glow blue. So yeah,
that is pretty crazy, right? Can you imagine if you were the first guy that found that out? It
wasn't until 2020 that they actually found it out.
Oh my goodness!
Toledo Zoo in Ohio.
Unbelievable, right? They're like, I've got a blacklight, torch, and I'm looking for something more. If you get one, you shine it on everything, because why not? And then he's
exactly.
looked at the potatoes and went, what the hell?
Oh, well done as always.
That is incredible. I can't believe I got the poo one right.
Well, that was good. That was funny.
That was a good guess. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for another Australia Talks. If you have any feedback or suggestions for topics, please get in touch with us at our email at australiatalks@proton.me. We'd also be grateful if you could subscribe and give us an honest review, as this helps us out immensely. And of course, the best thing you can do to support the show is just share it with a friend that you think might enjoy it. Otherwise, join us next week for another episode of Australia Talks. As always, thanks for listening, and don't forget to tell your mama love her.
Thank you, DK. And next rave I go to, I'm going to take a Tassie devil underneath each arm. Oh, my God, the flashing light has set off its attack reflex. Panic!